Welcome to Skyscanner's LGBTQ plus travel panel. Just getting everybody added in, and we will be kicking off in a moment. So as we get everybody dialed into the panel, drop in the comments where you're joining from today. I'd love to hear where everybody is.
Hello.
Hello.
Hiya. Yay.
Hey.
There he is.
What's up?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, everybody. Oh, there we go.
Yay. Yes.
What up?
Hi everyone, happy Pride.
Hi.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Just gonna mute myself whilst I find a tripod.
Tash and Marthe, it looks glorious where you are.
We may be on holiday in France right now, in the south of France.
I love it.
Ravi's face.
The south of France. I love it.
Yes. Yes, darling.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And Ravi, I don't know how you're still standing, but
Right.
I don't know either. Lots of coffee.
yeah, I'm grateful for you to be with us today. And I think Max is just finding a tripod and we'll kick off. Why don't I kick off with a little bit of an intro while Max gets himself set up, and then we will go. So yeah, thanks everyone for dialing in today to Skyscanner's LGBTQ plus travel panel for Pride. Very excited. My name is Jenna. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder of Skyscanner's Pride Network and also Skyscanner's Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Lead. And I also run an LGBT travel blog over on the Jenna Way. So I'm very delighted to have the honor of moderating today's panel and kind of merging all of my passions in one place with some epic people to chat to. So we're going to chat to 4 awesome LGBTQ plus travelers today. Before I introduce the panelists, or I'll have them introduce themselves, a couple of little housekeeping rules. This is absolutely a safe space. It means we've got absolutely zero tolerance for any derogatory behavior, abusive or offensive questions. We won't be permitting them, and you'll be removed from the channel if anything like that happens. Today's session is being recorded, which means that the information we share is going to be accessible for more people to listen back to and watch at a later date. So it will live on our Skyscanner Instagram page. And at the end of the panel, we're going to have time for questions as well. So have a think about what you might want to ask the panelists. And there's a question box at the bottom that you can use to drop those in. So yeah, are we ready? Everybody set? Happy to dive in? Amazing. Cool. Well, I'd love to just hear from you first. Just introduce yourself, share your pronouns, and perhaps your best travel experience of 2022 so far. Tash and Marthe, I'll go to you first.
Oh, wow. Hi, so I am Marthe, and this is Tash. Pronoun she, her as well. And we are very delighted to be with you from the south of France currently. Best travel experience 2022. Oh, wow. Hasn't been so long.
Where we are in the south of France,
yes, absolutely,
right now,
absolutely.
just
But
to
I'm
give
just
you a reference
thinking...
point, this is the current situation. So I think we'll go with right here,
right now,
in this moment.
Yes.
moment. But we run Breaking the Distance, which is an LGBTQ plus travel and positive visibility blog.
Awesome. Cool. Ravi, do you want to take it next?
Sure. I'm Ravi, he, him pronouns. I am the founder and the man behind Ravi Around the World. I am the host of 3 different queer travel adventure shows. Right now, I'm focusing on Ravi's Road to Pride and the 24-hour gay over. It's a kitschy little show. If you have a layover, make it longer, make it a gay over. And my favorite place that I've gone to this year, I'm going back to London. I love London. I really love the UK. So I'd say London's like pretty rad. I'm really excited to go back and experience another side of Great Britain.
Yes.
A very apt panel for you to be on today, Ravi, with
Right.
Yes.
Right.
in the UK. Max, do you want to intro yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Max. My pronouns are they, he. No preference, whichever one you want. Someone asked me what I did for a living recently, and I said I'm a trans guy on the internet, which they completely misinterpreted. So I'm just gonna leave that out there, and you can figure that out how you want. I've been like posting about travel as an LGBT person since I started traveling as an adult, which is an embarrassingly long time ago now. But since I transitioned, I'm kind of moving it more into travel from a trans perspective, because there's so many things that people don't take into account. And after the Pride Madness is over, I'm actually going to be launching my trans and traveling website, so keep an eye out for that. Shameless self-promotion. And my best travel moment of this year, it is technically this year, so it was literally just before New Year's Eve. I had top surgery in November 2021, and I had my first beach shirtless swim after that in the very beginning of January, and it was bloody freezing. But if I could cry, I can't cry because I'm on testosterone. But if I could cry, I would have cried. But I was just like swanning around in the sea in Lanzarote, and it could have been anywhere. But I was shirtless, and I could feel seawater on my nipples, which sounds incredibly weird. But as someone who's wanted that for such a long time, it was life changing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Sorry
That's
for mentioning my
awesome.
nipples already, everyone.
No, I love it, and I think, you know, it's a great point to call, because we're talking today about like LGBTQ plus travel, and we often use the acronym just like all encompassing all of the time, but it's so important to recognize as well that there are such unique and diverse experiences within the community, because it's such a massive community. So happy to have you on the panel from to share your perspective as well today, because it's not one we hear enough about. So I'll kick off with a little starter question. Just, we're talking about LGBTQ plus travel. I'm gonna say that word so much it's gonna like lose its meaning. Why is it important to each of you that this conversation has a space for itself, rather than just, you know, we talk about travel all the time, but why is it important for you that LGBTQ plus travel has its own space for a conversation? Tash Marthe, I see you smiling. I'll come to you first.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I think it's just very important to have that outlook, because for us as a couple, as a queer couple, we want to know where we can go and feel safe, and where we can be ourselves. But it's also really important for us to show people to places that are actually really accepting, and you wouldn't know or you wouldn't guess. And I think it's just, yeah, really important for everyone from the community to go to places where, yeah, they can, you know, travel safely. I think safety is the most important, number one.
Yeah, I just think it's, you know, we talk about travel as a whole topic, but there are so many different elements to that, and especially when you consider varying identities, I think it's really important that we acknowledge that travel is very different as an LGBTQ plus person. So we can't just speak about it as wonderful honeymoon destinations and beautiful beaches and mountains and all the amazing stuff. And yes, okay, you're exploring other cultures, but how do those cultures feel about your identity in the first place? And I also know that there's a lot of people who maybe this conversation in itself is new to them. And we, especially, I guess, Western world, we have an understanding or a belief that everybody knows what we're talking about. And actually, there are many cultures around the world that this conversation is very new.
Yeah, that's so important as well, because I think sometimes even us, I know we are always speaking about it so much that it almost feels like, okay, well, surely everybody knows this by now. But
Yeah.
like, a conversation, you're like, oh, actually, no. Sometimes, especially on the internet, we find ourselves in bubbles surrounded by people who are having the same conversation, and you forget this is still a conversation that needs to be had wider than our own little bubbles. Ravi, I guess you've built your brand on this as a topic, so why is it important to you?
Yeah. I mean, and like we just said, we know this. We're in this world, but you know, there, like I've said many times this year, we just had New York City Pride. I've done like 75 prides already, but there's still 70 countries in the world where it is illegal to be gay, and 10 where it's punishable by death. So we can't all have the same type of travel. We can't all have equality until there is actual equality. And I mean, there's so much happening here in America that's a whole other topic. But
Yeah.
even within America, you know, our rights are threatened. Our rights are threatened on a global stage. So it is important for LGBTQ plus travel to have a platform, to have a space, to have a safe space, to have role models, to have leaders, to have trailblazers, to have companies like Skyscanner that will stand for it, that will showcase where you can go, where you can be yourself, where you can live out loud. And then also places where we have to have the real conversation of when we have to code switch or when it's not safe or comfortable for us. And how I travel is different than everyone else in this panel travel. And I can't talk on the trans experience. I can't talk on the Black experience. I can just talk on the cis, white, gay experience, which is the most accepted, you know, and the most normalized. And it has its own struggles, but it's not the same type of struggles. So it's a long kind of question with a lot of meat in a lot of areas to go, but it's important because we don't have equality in this world, and we can't travel like regular people until we have that.
Yeah.
Love it. Max, do you want to?
I mean, everyone's covered it so well. I feel like we could do a whole panel on this, and I kind of want us to. So maybe like next year. Yeah, I think everyone covered it. Like, we live under this rainbow rock, particularly me as someone who, like, I literally exist in queer spaces 99.9% of the time. And I'm sure everyone on this panel has been in spaces where they're like, oh, maybe you could do this. And people are like, oh my God, I never thought about that. And you're like, oh, okay, that's where we are. But to the same point, it's there are so many barriers to travel as a queer person or a trans person that cis people or cis het people just absolutely do not think about. And that's not like intentional ignorance. It's not intentional apathy. It's just a complete, like, why would you know anything about that? So we have to talk about it because otherwise we can't make the changes. And it's something that I talk about a lot when it comes to the trans experience. And it's also relevant for queer people, is that it's not just about safety, it's about access. When we talk about travel, we're talking about something that is effectively a luxury. It's requires money, and it requires access, and it requires the internet and the ability to book things and education and all of these different things that actually queer people, and particularly trans people who earn on average 60% less than a cisgender person, how are they going to have access to travel? And we all understand the benefits of travel and why it's something that we all want to do and why it's something everybody should have access to. But even getting past that initial financial barrier is something that a lot of cis people don't even have to think about. So I always try and encourage the conversation to start with like the very, very beginning, as opposed to, okay, once you're in this country, how are you staying safe? That's a super important question, but actually, how are you even going to get that? How are you even going to believe that someone like you can go and do this? You know, I have a friend who's a Black trans guy who said to me the other day, I went to the ballet for the first time because I didn't realize until I was 29 that a Black trans person can go to the ballet, and this is a space for me. And travel is exactly the same. All we see are white cis het people in travel, and we're starting to see more and more diversity now, and that's great. But if we see people like us traveling, it tells other people that it's okay, and it's more than okay. It's safe, and it's great, and it's worth it, and it's something that you are entitled to be able to do, and something that you deserve.
Awesome. We could just like mic drop on all of your answers. No, but that is awesome, and it's so great because I think you've all touched on similar things but different perspectives as well, which is great to hear. If we think about sort of travel like right at the beginning, then like I'd love to hear what your number one priority is when you're traveling. I know we've touched on safety, but are there other thoughts that you have? Max, maybe I'll stick with you for a minute, and I'd love to hear sort of what your priorities are when you're planning travel and when you're traveling.
Yeah. So it reminds me of a I think I posted about this on LinkedIn. I posted a lot of angry things on LinkedIn recently. It's been a month. I was saying, so we hear the stuff about the trans agenda. And what I tell people is the trans agenda, again, in inverted commas, is trans people want to exist and live their lives without constantly thinking about being trans. And that is the same for me in travel. I want to go somewhere where I can be like, oh, I'm going to go to this restaurant, or I'm going to have this experience, and I don't have to think about my identity. I don't have to think about the scars on my chest and whether or not people are going to say things to me, whether I can take my shirt off. I don't want to have to take all of these extra things into account because they detract from my experience of that place. There are places that I've been, and you know, I've posted about this before. There are so many experiences I've had as a pre-transition trans person where I didn't enjoy them because I wasn't comfortable. So my priority now is about saying, where can I go that I can actually just live my life and not think about being trans? Unfortunately, there aren't that many places right now, but I'm trying to create a list of them. And if I find somewhere that isn't safe, I'm going to literally find the visitors, whatever it is, for that space and say, hey, I can help you. Because a lot of the time it's just small things. But yeah, I think for me, it's always going to be about, can I go here and enjoy it without constantly fearing my safety, or even just being distracted by the fact that something could happen in relation to my identity.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, travel brings us joy, right? So we want to be able to experience that joy, and we all deserve to experience the joy that travel brings. Ravi, what about you? What are your kind of priorities? What are you thinking about while you travel?
Well, I just want to make sure that like I want to go to a place that is diverse, that has real diversity, and that means ethnicity, but that also means within the alphabet mafia, the LGBTQA plus umbrella. When I'm planning out my Ravi's Road to Pride season, I really want to make it so vast so that I cover like a small town's first pride, and then I cover world pride. I want to go to places that have been discovered where I can find a new angle, and I want to go to places where I can give them some love and show them, you know, and showcase what that city has to offer. But you know, I'm from a small farm town outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and like I don't need to go to highlight that around the world, you know. So I want to go to places that just have more life, more ability to make change, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Tash and Marthe, then, I know you mentioned safety at the beginning as something that you're thinking about, and a reason why this conversation is important. Can you maybe share like a little bit about, like, expand on that a little bit more? Like when you talk about, you know, making sure you're going to be safe somewhere, like what are you taking into consideration? What are you doing for that?
Yeah, it's I think Max also said something there, like we want to feel comfortable as a couple. So I've been in a straight relationship before, so then you don't think about it, you just, you know, you go somewhere and you don't think about those things. And now when we want to go somewhere, we check the internet, of course. What is that great website?
Equaldex is a really good website for giving you all the LGBTQ legal framework for every country, but also gives you a sense of the general population's feelings towards the LGBTQ community, irrespective of what the legal framework looks like as well. So you kind of understand the culture attached to the country versus just, is it illegal, is it not?
Because sometimes something on paper can look quite scary, but when you're there, you actually feel really accepted. So what we also do is we actually reach out to other influencers or people we know that traveled there as a gay couple or as a queer couple or maybe a single couple, but a single person. But it's really nice to have those personal experiences. For example, Mexico, we went there on our honeymoon, and Once Upon a Journey like rave about it, and we just asked them, okay, how was it? Where did you go? And I think that is just really, really important, that you just don't read Google and you know, have those statistics, but have personal experiences. And then that felt really good for us.
Yeah, and I'd say probably the other element, and this ties into, you know, the varying different identities, but okay, yes, we can navigate a country or a new destination as cisgendered women, but we're also two women. which carries then a very different element in terms of our safety and how we're looking at a place, you know, how dark are the streets at night? Where are we staying in relation to the main sort of population of that area? And, you know, the first time I went traveling alone, I went to a place that had been stayed at predominantly by solo female travelers, knowing that that would be a safe destination for me as a woman. They picked you up at the airport. There was a hotel, like airport transfers, things like that, that I think you have to consider when you're navigating the world as a woman. And then the additional element of obviously being a queer woman in that space as well comes with a whole host of other challenges on top of that.
Yeah, it's so important what you say about, like, I guess, influencers. I think the word influencer gets such a bad rap, but like having the ability to hear from real people who have had real experiences is so important. And that's why it's great to chat to you all today on and have this platform to discuss it as well. Like, we went to Curacao in February because Shanna and Gabby of 27 Travels talk so much about how wonderful Curacao is, because you're like, okay, there's someone that looks like me, that travels like me, that's had a positive, safe experience, and that's not always 100% of the time, because you can have like unique, you know, different experiences, but it goes a long way to give you a little bit of comfort that you're gonna be probably okay, or you've got a good chance of having a positive experience in a place. So for sure. If we switch the dial a little bit then, because I think conversations around LGBTQ plus travel focus a lot on barriers, on safety, on, you know, possible like things that can go wrong, but also I think Max spoke to like the joy that queer travel can bring as well, and so many positive experiences. And I think, Max, your story at the beginning was so powerful to just show like how validating travel can be as well. So I would love to hear from you all like an experience you've had either in a destination or with a particular like a travel provider, like, I don't know, a hotel or an airline, or just an individual that you met while traveling that made you feel like really valid. So I guess that's a big question, but I'd love to just hear some positive, validating stories.
I can jump in on this one. So this is actually from pre-transition. So this is when I was presenting as a cis woman, which is frankly bizarre to think about now, but I think most of you actually like met me at that point, so you remember what she was like. Anyway, I was traveling with my girlfriend, and I was in Vietnam, and actually what reminded me of it is Tash Marthe talking about not listening to Google. So I was in Vietnam, and Vietnam is mixed from an LGBTQ perspective. And we were on the beach, and the usual thing, someone came up to us selling stuff and asked if we were sisters or friends. And we were like, yeah. And then she was like, girlfriends? And she saw us exchange a look, and she was like, it's okay, I have gay friends. And she said something like, oh, like men are too much headache, or something like that. It was some incredible comment, which as someone who now identifies as a man, I agree they are. But it was this moment of recognition of actually like what people see and how people perceive you and the support that you have. There are so many people out there who actually want to welcome you. And we've also talked about kind of Western privilege as well. And actually, if you're someone who's coming from a Western country and spending money in their country, like they're kind of grateful for that. And it shouldn't necessarily be that way, but you're going to have some privilege that comes alongside that. But yeah, I think just moments where individual people have recognized our queerness in a positive way is always wonderful. And for me, it's also small inclusivity things that companies will do. So I do a lot of work with the Mama Shelter hotel chains. I think they're owned by Accor Hotels, and they've started asking people or reconfirming people's pronouns when you check in. And I was like, that's the first time I've ever been asked that in this environment. And that happened to me the first time when I was identifying as non-binary and I hadn't medically transitioned yet. So most people were joining me as female. And she was like, oh, I just want to check your pronouns they, them. And everyone got my pronouns right the entire time, which has never happened in a public space. And it's so powerful, and it's such a small thing. And yeah, it's what I say to people all the time. Like, this is such a tiny thing that you can do to make people feel welcome. And it's something that I give the example of every time I talk about hotels. So I probably encouraged like 50 people to book Mama Shelter London just for that. So you're welcome. Employ me as an ambassador.
Yes.
It's that ripple effect though, isn't it? Because you have that one positive experience, and then how many times do you tell the story of like one,
Mhm.
thing. We hosted a panel last week to talk about like queer family travel, and Cara on that was sharing like just that, again, interaction with like a one individual who brought her and her family like over some extra cupcakes because they were all wearing pride shirts at Disney, and like she was in tears telling the story because it just shows you like what an impact having like just one small tiny gesture of like a cupcake can have on just making you feel like valid and seen and accepted. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't have to be the big grand gestures, it's those little things that make a massive difference as well. Ravi, I'd love to hear from you a positive, validating experience.
It's also really good to hear about Mama Shelter. I stayed there in London, oh God, like before the pandemic, and I had an absolutely amazing time, and I'm sure they're just continuing to push their envelope even further, which is great. For me, I'd say like the most magical experience that I've ever had was with an airline, Alaska Airlines. I hosted their Pride in the Sky, and for those of you who are like, what is that? Alaska Airlines is the only airline that flies a rainbow plane 365 days a year. They are the only airline that is showing pride not just in June. I hosted their party. It was at San Francisco International Airport. I was wearing a rainbow caftan.
Of
And
course you were.
I mean, it was amazing. It was like a celebration. We were dancing. And then we got to the meat of what is pride. And I was talking with the, the heads of media and the heads of PR from Alaska Airlines. And they were like, I don't know if we should go down the route of talking about how there are countries that punish you by death for being gay. And then we're like, well, what do we stand for? And then they said, keep it. And we put it out there. We did that. It got picked up by like CNN, by People, by all these like amazing outlets, but also getting a lot of hate too, which comes along with it, as we all know. There's still a lot of negativity towards LGBTQ people, but having like when you get something that's mainstream, like an airline or like a hotel, a brand that really supports and really sticks by, and you can see it through the rest of the year with Alaska Airlines. They just they now have pronoun pins. They let their crew dress for the gender that they want. So it's not having to wear a dress or a suit. You can mix, you can match, you can show your tattoos if you have them. You can have your nose ring, you can have your piercings. They're really letting people be individual, and they're showcasing that throughout the year. So I can go on and on, but it was the most, what was magical for myself about that entire experience was there was this man, probably like in his 70s, who was just standing there dancing to like Lady Gaga's Born This Way. He was standing in the middle of the airline, and then he just came up to me and like shook my hand and just said thank you. And he's never seen this before. And the people on the airplane, there was 140 people that didn't even know that it was a pride flight. So we had a pride party in the air, and they didn't know it was a pride flight. They were clapping their fans. They were living their lives. And that's like an experience as like someone from like my 14-year-old self, when I had no role models, when I had no idea that I was gay. I thought I was weird, navigating that, but then being able to go on a plane and seeing that mainstream representation, like we need more of that. So that for me is hands down like the most magical queer experience.
I love it, and I love the video of that event. Like I've seen it it's been reshared so many times, and if folk are watching this live and haven't seen Ravi's Alaska Airlines Pride video, it's epic, so go check it out afterwards. Tash, Marthe, I'll come to you. Maybe you've got a shared one, maybe you've got different ones.
Malaysia.
Yeah, we got a shared one. This one is really special. We traveled through Southeast Asia, and we went to Malaysia, and in certain parts we didn't feel so open or super comfortable, but when we went to Kuala Lumpur, one of our followers messaged us and say, oh, do you want to meet up? Me and my girlfriend will take you out for the day. And we met them, and she was Indian, and
yeah, they were both
Chinese.
Yeah, but like as in terms of their heritage and their culture at home, but they both were born and bred in Malaysia.
And they both lived at home, and they had a secret relationship for already a few years because, you know, it's not very accepted in where they were from. And but it was just amazing to spend the day with them and to connect with these people in that country. And they showed us so many things we wouldn't have go to ourselves. And I think that is one of the most fun memories I have of traveling, that you can meet up with people from the community, but also in that specific country. So in that culture that we don't know anything about, and we're just like tourists visiting a place. That was really, really magical.
Yeah, I think it really highlighted again that privilege. Hi, doggy. That privilege that we have to be
I'm
our
so
authentic
sorry. She was
selves.
crying outside, so I had to let her
Oh,
in.
you're fine. She can totally be here. That privilege that we have, where we can walk around, and you know, we're on holiday right now with Marta's mum, who is fully accepting of our relationship. So it kind of really highlighted that to us, being with this couple who have been together 4 years, but neither of their families know that they've been. I mean, they're now engaged. Like, that's how long and serious it is.
Wow.
I have one other memory, which is just a short one, when we were on honeymoon in Mexico. And I think this really highlights that small act that Max was also talking about. We were in a restaurant, two of us, it was our honeymoon, and we were sort of being really cute. And there was a young family sitting opposite us, the girl who was maybe about 5 or 6. And she saw us kiss, and then she turned to her mum and she's saying something, and they were Spanish speaking. I don't know if
they were from Peru.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, the mum and daughter are standing next to us, and that's that instant sort of dread, I think, as a queer person traveling, is, okay, what's about to happen? And the mum says, oh, my daughter saw you kissing and she has something to ask you. And we're like, what? And she got really shy. And the mum was like, okay, she's too shy, but she saw you kiss and she wants to know, are you in love? And we were like, we're on our honeymoon. And the mum turned to the daughter, told her that we were on honeymoon, that we just got married. And the daughter just looked at us and went like this. And the mum was like, congratulations. Oh, you're so beautiful. And like, have a lovely meal. And then walked off. And we were just like, oh, I was crying. Because it was that like little moment of that expectation that, oh my gosh, it's going to go horribly wrong right now. And actually it was the complete opposite. And this family, also beautiful to see that was being taught to a young child, that this is a beautiful thing and this is completely normalized. And that was in Mexico. Shut up, I needed to hear that. That's wonderful.
Yeah. I've heard that story before and it still got me.
Yeah.
I just think it's just so beautiful and it's so great. Like, I'm so glad we asked that question, because it is so, I think it's easy to get bogged down in the safety and barriers, which are very real and very much do exist, but like, there's just so much joy that can come from traveling as well. And it's so nice to just talk about that as well. So my next question then is like around traveling more, because we know the joy it brings. We want to celebrate travel. What piece of advice would you have for LGBT folk who are maybe listening and want to travel more, maybe people who haven't traveled a lot? Do you have sort of one piece of advice for folk who would like to travel more? Anybody want to pop in?
Yeah. Okay, just do it. Just do it. You're gonna
Ravi, yes.
You're not gonna do it perfect. There's no right way to do it. I have been doing this professionally for like 10 years. I don't know how to pack. I have no idea how to pack. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. But be spontaneous, plan out some things, but leave room for the pause. My favorite travel person in the world is Samantha Brown. She's like my idol. For those of you who don't know, she was one of the pioneers on the Travel Channel. And she says, leave room for the pause, leave room for improv. Plan out maybe where you're going to stay, plan out a few activities, but leave room. That's when the best, most magical things happen, when you stumble upon a cafe, or you stumble upon a restaurant, or you stumble upon a queer bar, and talk to the locals. Also, like, follow the people that do this. So all of us, like, we all do this professionally. And slide in our DMs. They're always open. Sometimes we don't read them, but they're always open. And we can always help out, navigate a trip. and sometimes you can take some of our itineraries. I do the same thing. I look on other people's itineraries that they did, and I'm like, oh, Jenna did this. Interesting. Jenna, what are you doing in London later this week? You know, so I'll find out from other people what's going on. So that's what I have to do. And hopefully my bag's not overweight.
Oh yeah, that's the worst.
Your packing situation, Ravi, just stresses me out.
So
I'm so glad I'm not the only one, because I can't, like, I'm
like throw.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
either like I pack like one t-shirt for 5 days, or I pack like a full size check-in cabin for like 2 days, and I just don't know. I don't know why. I haven't. Yeah, it's been like 10 years. I give up.
We are the
I'll just pay
cliche
the fee.
women packing.
I definitely still pack like a woman, if that's a thing that I'm allowed to say. I definitely still do.
5 pairs of shoes.
Because I'm hand luggage only, one backpack, off you go.
Oh no.
I've never been. No. Never.
What if it's cold that night? What if it's warm?
What if I
What
change
if
my
it's
mind?
raining? What if I want to wear closed-toe shoes?
Right, what if your socks get wet? What if your shoes get wet? What if your clack fan gets wet?
What if I pee myself 10 times?
So true.
Max, other than being a terrible packer, do you have any
I feel attacked.
yeah. Do you have any other tips for folk who would love to travel a little bit more or interested in traveling for the first time even?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I've spent, this is my like this is my 7th speaking session in 6 days, and I have another 7 days, and I've said this every single time. okay, so if like heterosexual people are here, LGBT people are like here, trans people are like, they're not even on the screen. We're like over there having a bad time. So my main thing that I want to say to queer people, but particularly trans people, is like, this is for you too. You are entitled to this. You deserve it. You are allowed to do this, and this is a space for you, and you can take it. If this is something that you want to do not let like the shit going on in the world stop you. If you think that you can go and you can enjoy it and you can afford it, or you can figure out how to do it on like a budget, which, like as Ravi said, there are so much like education and content out there to help you figure that out. If you can go and you can feel safe, then do it. Like, absolutely do it. And yeah, it might be a bit tricky and it might be a little bit scary, but I promise you it'll be worth it, because the experiences that you're having will outrun that fear. You know, my girlfriend is so scared of flying. She hates it. And she's like the most confident person I know, but she just absolutely hates it. But she gets over it, and like, you know, we've got some Valium. We're just trying to work through it. And you know, she's like gotten off planes before, but every time she gets on there, she's like, I would rather have 4 hours of panic attacks and get there. And I see queer travelers the same thing. Like, you're going to be scared and you're going to have to research it, and it's going to suck. There's going to be a point where you're like, I am not as safe as other people, literally because of who I am, and that sucks. But it is worth it, and you do deserve it. On the flip side of that, if you're thinking, I want to travel, but I don't feel safe or I don't feel ready, you also don't have to. You're not letting yourself down or letting anybody else down, or like not living up to your identity if you don't feel safe to do this. Like, you don't have to. If you just want to go back to the same place again and again because that's where you feel safe, that is your prerogative. You do whatever you want to do that makes you happy. Take the space that you want. Twiglet is crying in the background. I'm going to assume it's because she agrees. Take the space that you want. Take the space that you deserve. Do it. Take the risk. And, you know, look at other people who are doing this. Like, if I can do it, so can you. If I can get my like designer nipples out on the beach and have like really bad tan lines, so can you. And I'll be honest with you. Like, if I go somewhere and I get shit from people, I'm going to tell you. So like, you can trust me to tell you my experience, and I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, but if you ask me, I will give you all the resources and all the help that I can to help you have a good time.
Especially that last point.
Yeah. Tash, Marthe, any travel tips from you?
I mean, everything has been said.
I mean, kind of the only thing, and I know that this is something that actually you're passionate about, and especially Ravi, is like, connect with the queer community that's there. It's so much fun. Like, when you find that way, whether it's you find the one tiny like bar somewhere, or you join a Facebook group, but there's just something so magical about like, we're tribal by nature, right, as humans, and finding your tribe in a completely different destination, there is something so magical about that. So I would always say wherever you have opportunity, plus from that like safety standpoint, all of those types of things, you are speaking to people who have real life experience in those places and know the place of where to go and everything else. But it is just something so magical about being the other side of the planet and connecting with somebody so closely based on an identity, and sometimes even closer than you would to the person living next door to you back home. It's just, yeah, always really fun.
Yes, well said.
Yeah, that shared experience, isn't it? And there's not really a way to like put it into words, but there's just that shared connection with people that you've never met. And I'm going to layer on one as well. I'm not here to talk, but I've just had I thought based on what Max was sharing about like hating flying, and I think it's important to remember that sometimes travel doesn't have to be like going to the other side of the world. I think if the pandemic taught me anything, it's like how many incredible places are on our doorsteps. Like I'm someone that was trying to be on a plane every single weekend, and now, you know, being stuck in Scotland for so long, there are so many incredible places in Scotland that we could get to just like within an hour's drive from home. And so, you know, if you're someone who's never traveled really beyond like your city, taking an hour's train journey, or, you know, taking a drive out to the country, or, you know, to a nearby city to just explore for a weekend, like that's travel too. Like travel doesn't have to be palm trees and gorgeous beaches and, you know, far off destinations. So definitely there's that accessible travel near home as well that can like dip your toe in the water.
So true.
Okay, I'm gonna check what we've got. About just under 20 minutes left, like 15 minutes left. So if anyone has questions as well, they want to drop in the question box, happy on those as well. But I've got a couple more questions in case we don't get any in, some pre-submitted, if you will. I've had a question because we've got folk from Skyscanner as well listening in. So I'm getting a few questions from our Skyscanner people as well, if you see me looking at my screen. And one of them is around allies and allyship. And I think it's really important to acknowledge how important allies are in sort of moving the needle towards acceptance and equality for all as well. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you, what can allies do? We've heard those individual, you know, stories you had that made you feel really validated, those simple interactions. Like what else can allies do, either while traveling or just like in general day-to-day life to make spaces even more inclusive for the LGBTQ plus community? Anyone want to take it first?
I
can jump.
Tash go first.
I would say something actually, it's like really small, and I think this is if anybody owns sort of a business in a destination, especially, but like whenever we go somewhere new, we'll always look for like a little pride flag, and quite often we're not necessarily like spying it out, but if we see somewhere, if we see a cafe or a bar, especially if it's like a cafe, something like that, or a clothes shop or something that has a little pride flag in the window, then we're like, oh, okay, we know that that's a safe space. It doesn't mean that everybody in that space is LGBTQ, but we know that the space recognizes it. And I think it's something that allies can do, whether, like, as I say, if you own a business, then very easy to do. Or if you work somewhere, just to have like a little pin on like a bag, or these tiny things that sort of say, like, whether it's a little lanyard, whatever it is, that just sort of say like, I recognize you. Also important to note in the UK, especially, that it's not the standard rainbow flag, that it's the inclusive one, either with the trans colours of the black and brown, because since COVID, and obviously the NHS took over the rainbow apparently, it's really important that that differentiation is made, because there's a lot of spaces that I've walked around in and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cool NHS, it's not queer friendly. But when I see the fully inclusive flag with the trans colours on there as well, I know that that is saying we are LGBTQ friendly, not just well done to the NHS.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I also think when you are not queer, it's great to see if you share stuff as well, like if you're an influencer or something, or just having social media, because friends and family are usually, I hope, you know, quite accepting and inclusive. But I know a lot of like straight people are now sharing so much as well, and not of course their own lived experience, but just to show that they are inclusive, or they talk about it. And yeah, that's really nice to see. Yeah, we actually had one of your friends perform at a queer festival in Wales, and she identifies as straight, but she just talks about it, and she's just very open about it, and it's just amazing to see. Yeah,
she's like a very outspoken ally, which using your platform for more than just yourself, I guess.
Awesome. Max, were you wanting to add into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tash Marthe definitely like launched off my point, which is that I keep getting asked about allyship in these sessions, and I remind people that allyship is a verb. It is about what you're doing. Again, back to my angry LinkedIn post I posted this morning saying that if you can't answer the question of what you've done to actively improve LGBTQ people's lives as an ally, then you shouldn't be attending Pride. Because really you don't get the celebration if you're not benefiting. And obviously queer people get to go to Pride, whatever, because we're queer. But if you're calling yourself an ally, you need to be doing something, and it is an active thing. And often when we talk about allyship, we don't actually define it. And what we need to define it as is using your power, your privilege, and whatever you have of that to help the people that you're allied with. And I think Ravi mentioned as a cis gay guy, he's able to actively support the experiences of trans people. So it's within the community and it's outside of the community, but it can be something as simple as educating yourself on why pronouns are important. It can be something as simple as keeping an eye out in a destination. If you hear somebody experiencing something that doesn't sound right to you, weighing in or offering them support, because often as queer people, we are not in a place to protect ourselves, and we're not in a place where we're safe to react to abuse, whether it's verbal, whether it's kind of implied. You know, I've been in plenty of countries where I've been stared at and shouted at in different languages, and actually the thing that I need in that space is for somebody to come and kind of stick up for me, or come and say, like, are you okay? Because I can't respond to that, because if I respond to that, I'm not protected by the law. I'm not protected by hate speech and any of the things that we take for granted in the UK. So it's about making sure that you're conscious of the power and the privilege that you have as an ally, and how you can use that for people. And that comes into travel, but it comes into every other space as well.
Oh, yes. All of this. Okay, I just want to add two more things into this conversation. A lot of allies are like, so what is why do we need to use pronouns? Or like, what is trans? If you don't have friends that are trans, if you don't have friends that are non-binary, if you don't have friends that are Black or brown or Asian or disabled, what are you doing? Like, get these friends. There's millions of them out there. Expand your circle. If you're showcasing photos and it's all white people, like, take a look inward. 1, 2, if you're going to a pride to get that photo for Instagram, also stand up when there's injustice happening. Also be the person that's going to reshare our things in November when it's not about pride. Reshare, repurpose, stand up against what's happening. And if you're in an airport and you see something going down through TSA, if you see something going down towards somebody on the street, stand up for it. I'm not saying put yourself in harm's way, but stand up against injustice.
Yes. Mic drop.
And done. Amazing. Yeah. No, I think it's so important. And I think, allyship for me, like, I think you like nailed it. Like, I always have like 3 points when I talk about like allyship, and like, you've got to be visible, you've got to be vocal, you've got to be active. And I think we nailed all of those, right? Like, do something to show it, like show the flag, say something, speak up, and be allyship is a verb. It's an active 365 all year round, not just for Pride. And then if you're doing all that, come join us at Pride and celebrate with us, because it's a great time. We had one question in the comments around UK destinations. So I know Ravi, you're not from the UK, but you mentioned how much you love visiting London. But maybe Max and Tash and Marthe, you could share sort of what are your favorite UK destinations that you visited?
Do you want to go first?
Oh, I'm not even from the UK.
No, I know, but you've been to many with you.
I mean, yes, Brighton, of course. It's like the K capital, I think, of the UK. I mean, London is amazing too, but Brighton is just a little bit tinier. And when we went there for a weekend, we were actually filming for Ravi show, and I was just so amazed of the people that are there, like the young people. It was just so diverse. Like, it was just so amazing to see, and I was like, oh, if I would have grown up in this kind of like city, how amazing is that it doesn't matter who you are, it's just, yeah, I was really
Yeah,
amazed.
they're like a generation forward, I feel
Yeah.
like, in Brighton, just generally. Yeah, you can watch that episode, Gaycation Travel Show, on YouTube. It is on Ravi's channel. I also know, like, I haven't been to it so much, but Manchester has a really vibrant LGBTQ scene, in terms of just, again, it's a city that I think is filled with a lot of youth. You know, big university there, and a big university city. So again, it's another space that is almost like the sort of London covers, I guess, the south of the UK in a way, and then Manchester's kind of like that for the north, of the country. Max, so if you have anywhere else that sort of is a hotspot for you.
So I actually visited somewhere in lockdown that I love so much that I moved here, which is Hastings. And when I tell people Hastings, they're like, "What? Where?"
Where is that?
I understand
You know,
why.
site of the 1066 battle, which is pretty much anyone who went to school in the UK will know that. If you didn't, it's just some pretty dull English history, to be honest. And I did a history degree, and I'm saying that. But so Hastings is like, if you look at the map and you've got Brighton here, it's like up a bit. So it's like still on the coast, and it's this little like seaside town that was like super tacky for a really long time, and it's about an hour and a half to London. And what's happening is even before COVID, but especially during COVID, everyone, all the tired queers in London were like, I can't do this anymore, me included. And they all moved down to Brighton, and then Brighton's getting expensive, and they went to Margate, and Margate's getting expensive. So now they're coming to Hastings. And what we've got is this beautiful, like quite cheap seaside town that is like super gay and super trans and super diverse, and it's everything I could ever want, because it's by the sea, which I love, and it's sunny and beautiful, and you don't have to spend, you know, $2,000 a month on a tiny studio, which is pretty much what I was spending in central London. But you've also got the kind of benefit of diversity, and there's a pride happening here in the end of August, which I formally invite all of you to, because it's incredible. It's on the pier, which is so cool. Like, please come. And it's your classic regional pride. And I have to take a second here to write a love letter to regional prides, because I love them. I love warm beer. I love really bad drag, and I love glitter. I love it.
Which is like every regional
regional pride. But, you know, I was at Essex Pride on Saturday.
Essex Pride is my favourite.
It was so good. I went
it's the
on
best
behalf of Not
pride in the UK.
It was so wholesome. There were so many families there. And it just reminded me how powerful these things are. You know, London Pride is great. It's a massive event. But I think I've spoken to most of you individually about how overwhelming it is, and how, you know, London Pride is actually lots of very small events. And regional prides are, you know, I spoke to so many young queer and trans people who were like, this is the only thing that happens here. This is the highlight of their calendar. This is the only place where they go and they feel accepted. Like, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I know how that feels. So, like, any regional prides in any country that you go to, please go, please support them, please buy a wristband, buy a drink, because it's so important, and it creates an amazing space. But yeah, Hastings, and like, this massive exodus of people from cities is just spreading the gays out, which I love. Everywhere you go, there's these slightly exhausted queers who are like, oh yeah, I just came down here, but now I'm like starting a trans support group or whatever, which is amazing. But yeah, I met my girlfriend last year. She was already living here. I came down here for the first time. It was one of those moments where we met on a dating app, and I was like, please be in London, please be in London. Nope, she's in Hastings. It's fine, go down, see her once, see if it works out. Anyway, a year later, we're living together in Hastings, and it's brilliant. And I think, yeah, like the same as Brighton, the same as a lot of regional places in the UK, like, give them a chance, because a lot of people come to the UK and they come to London, and I get that, but actually we're a small country, and there are so many other places that are really, really nice and really beautiful and super inclusive. Don't go to South Devon. That's where I grew up. They haven't figured it out yet. But Brighton,
Plymouth.
Hastings, Margate.
Love it. And then, well, I guess, Ravi, we've heard from everyone else on British destinations. And do you have any?
I have some to add, yeah.
Because I know you've visited a few times already.
Yeah, I have to say I was blown away by Bristol.
Yes, I hoped you would say Bristol.
Bristol blew my mind. The first day I got there, there was a women's march. They have a whole campaign of "Get Your Hands Off My Body," and they were educating throughout all the bars what to do when you see sexual harassment in the workplace. So that was happening. It's also a city of resistance. It's also a city of street art. Really badass. Loved it. And then I have to give a shout out to Glasgow. So I know a lot of people go to Edinburgh, but Glasgow was gritty. It was raw. It had diversity. It had drag. It had a thriving pulse. I wouldn't say it's the prettiest city I've ever been to, but there's moments where it was absolutely stunning. I mean, like, it's just like Harry Potter's world. I felt like I was in Harry Potter's, like, castles. I love a castle moment, and I feel like castles are everywhere in the UK. But yeah, Bristol was insane. And I'm going back to London again. I'm actually going to Brighton for the first time, too, this coming week. So I thank you, Tash and Marthe, for being on vacation and showing me that. So I'm going to take your tips and use them when I go to Brighton later in the week.
Oh. And you can check out We Are Wandering Travel, live in Bristol. So if you want to see around Bristol, follow them because they are based in Bristol.
Oh, cool.
Love it. Yeah. So many great recommendations. I'm actually going to go to Brighton Pride later in August. Very excited because I think Aguilera is headlining. So when I saw that, I booked tickets before I knew anything else about the event. But I do think it will be great. So excited for that one. We're almost at time, which time has flown because this has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours. But I do want to give everybody a chance to just like self-promo everything that you've got going on. Where can people find you? What have you got coming up? Tash and Marthe, I'll start with you. And yeah, do you want to just let people know where we can find you and what we should look out for?
Absolutely. So our Instagram is _breaking distance, and you can go there, and you can also find our podcast. And we also have a blog, breakingdistance.com. Am I forgetting?
No, just the podcast is also, guess what? Breaking the Distance. We kept it simple with the branding. But yeah, absolutely reach out to us because we love to chat.
We're in London Pride next week, so we will be back from France. So if you're around,
send us a message.
Yeah.
Amazing. Max, where can we find you? What have you got going on? I know you're so busy.
Everywhere and everything. I don't know where I'm going. My Instagram is there queer. I'm usually on there talking to the camera with no shirt on about what I'm doing. So come and say hi. Wandering around with my girlfriend dressed in ridiculous outfits, bringing Twiglet because she's very, very clingy. So yeah, if you want some queer and some dog content, come say hi. I'm also on LinkedIn. My last name is Slack, SLACK, and I basically say all the things that nobody else wants to say because they have a boss, but I don't. So I say whatever I want. So come and say hi. I'm on a couple of panels this week, one in particular tomorrow about trans creativity. It's an all trans panel about how the trans experience can kind of benefit and increase creativity in the media industry, and it's awesome, and it's like the first of its kind that I've ever seen. That's on LinkedIn Live. And yeah, everything else is on, I have a rainbow soda stream to unbox, so that's also great fun. But yeah, there's so much Pride stuff happening I actually can't remember, so just come and say hi on Instagram and I will show you everything that I'm up to because it's a lot.
Love it. Ravi, where can we find you?
I am Ravi round the world, not around, round alliteration. I am on Instagram and the TikTok and the YouTube, RaviRoundTheWorld.com.
Please go to Ravi's TikTok. It's hilarious. It literally makes my day.
I'm literally gonna go follow you now.
Oh.
It's the best TikTok ever.
I'm coming to London. I'm going to London tonight. I have to pack. My bag is already overweight. I don't know what I'm bringing, although I am bringing a lot of tank tops. Anyway, looking for a husband. I will be in London. I will be in Brighton. I will be at Vancouver Pride. I will be at Iceland Pride. And I will sleep next year because this just not
Sleep is
stop.
for the straights. We don't.
Your post that you just put on Instagram maybe like an hour ago, Ravi, where you just listed like all the places you're going to be over the next like 4 weeks. I don't know how you're doing it, but it's phenomenal. And I'm so happy to just see everybody so booked and busy and living their best life during Pride. And I guess shout out to people who want to hire queer creators outside of the month of June, because June books up. So
and we will charge you triple in June.
To be doing these
in July.
Yeah. So excited to be doing these panels and these conversations all year round as well, because I know that that's so important to us and definitely really important to me. So thank you so much for your time during such a busy month for such an epic conversation, and happy rest of Pride to everybody, and hopefully see some of you in person real soon as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We're going to go jump in the pool.
Yeah.
We love you, Jenna.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Thank you, Skyscanner.
Thank you.